Hey guys, I'm Nick and I'm with Fifth Gear and Aubrey Crossroads. Today we're going to go over the Volkswagen fuel systems. We've got new systems and we've got older systems to go over. So this is one of the older Volkswagens that we have at the shop. Obviously you've got a fuel tank, you've got a fuel pump. The pump basically is commanded on and it's pumping fuel up to the engine. And right here is where our fuel line is. Now this component right here is what is called a fuel pressure regulator. And you'll notice this vacuum hose going to it. This uses engine vacuum to open and close the diaphragm. And at low RPMs like idle, there's a lot of vacuum being applied. So what this does is it uses that vacuum to open the system up to allow fuel to get returned back to the fuel tank. So you maintain a stable pressure up at the fuel rail for the injectors. Now, when you get to a higher RPM, you get more load, you lose vacuum, and that allows this to shut off. That way you can have higher fuel pressure up at the fuel rail. So we're in a newer Volkswagen. This is a 2020 Passat, and our fuel system starts down here. Some of these models, they've got a driver module that basically controls the fuel pump speed. This one does not have that. But inside of this fuel tank below here is something that looks similar to this. This is a fuel pump sending unit, basically fuel pump module assembly. Down here's where your pump is. This is technically a fuel pressure regulator, but it does not operate like the vacuum controlled one that we just looked at. This is essentially just a check valve. If fuel pressure gets too high in the system, it allows fuel to be dumped back into the fuel tank itself. Now, from our fuel pump, we've got our fuel line. Here's our output. This goes to the front of the car. There is no return on the system. So now we'll jump to the front of the vehicle and we'll check out what we got going up front. All right, so here at the front of the vehicle, we've got our fuel line. This is coming directly back from that pump that we were just looking at. And what this does is it feeds this guy over here, which is called a high pressure fuel pump. And what this does is it runs off the back side of the camshaft. And as the motor spins, there's a device that's basically pushing up on the spring and it's pressurizing the fuel inside of this unit. From there, it travels down our pipe into our fuel rail and allows the fuel injectors to be able to deliver fuel to the engine. Now, if you notice here, we've got a fuel pressure sensor. This sensor basically tells the computer, hey, we've got too much fuel pressure. We don't have enough fuel pressure. And that is ran back up to here, which is called the quantity control valve, and basically tells the fuel pump, hey, let's make some more pressure, or no, we're good where we're at right now. So there's benefits on both systems. This one is more simple. Obviously, it's going to be cheaper to upkeep and maintain. However, this one, we get better performance, we get better fuel delivery and better fuel management. It's also better on emissions. On these newer vehicles, when a customer is complaining that they're having a fueling issue, it could be something as simple as like a misfire, or it could be as exaggerated as a crank no start situation, or the car even shut off while they're driving. Some of the common things that we see on older Volkswagens is just loose vacuum hoses, broken hoses, or bad diaphragms within the vacuum controlled fuel regulator. On newer Volkswagens though, people that continuously run their vehicles low on fuel typically are the ones that are having fueling issues. On these newer Volkswagens, when they come in with fueling issues, the diagnostics procedure starts with pulling code and seeing what we have. Most of the time we have low pressure on the high pressure system, and it starts with using a fuel pressure gauge to check the actual low pressure system to see what pressures we have. Most of the time they don't have a sensor. If everything looks good there, we'll move over to the high pressure side, make sure that the quantity control valve is opening, and if it is, so we look at the injectors to see if we have something that's stuck open or not opening at all. Even more extreme faults, if we don't have injectors that are opening and closing, it might even move into using an oscilloscope to see what our waveforms are doing to make sure that the engine control module is actually putting out signals to the injectors to be able to open and close. On our newer Volkswagens, there's not necessarily a like make and model to stay away from. The most important thing on these fuel systems is keeping fuel in the tank. The people that we see that have the low fuel lights come on are the people that usually experience the problem. These low pressure pumps, they are inside the fuel tank, they are lubricated by the fuel, and they are cooled by the fuel. So if you continuously run on low fuel, then what you're doing is you're aerating the fuel mixture going into that fuel pump, and the air is causing a lack of lubrication, and also not having fuel surrounding the fuel pump is not allowing the fuel pump to be able to alleviate the heat off of itself. So you're burning up the low pressure pump, you're introducing air into the system, and that air is eventually going to make its way up to the high pressure pump, and it can damage the high pressure fuel pump also. On these newer Volkswagens, they've got this little yellow light up on the dash. It's actually called a check engine light. That is the first sign that people are having issues with their fuel fuel systems. Bring it into us, let us scan the codes, let's see what we got going on. If we let this go unaddressed for too long, just not knowing what the problem is, you could be damaging the low pressure pump, causing damage to the high pressure pump. If you got an injector that's not opening and you're running lean on a cylinder, you can burn valves up. Or on the flip side, if you got an injector that's staying open and you're actually dumping too much fuel into the system, you can damage cylinder walls by having too much solvent, which essentially will trash the cylinder. Or you could be dumping excessive fuel on the catalyst and cause the catalytic converter to fail prematurely. On our older Volkswagens, if we have a fuel pressure regulator that's failed, depending on where it's at on the intake manifold, we want to make sure that there's not an excessive amount of fuel just sitting stagnant. In the event that it was like a vacuum line, you want to put eyes on other vacuum controlled components like the EGR switching valves, boost pressure switching valves. Just take a look at the overall condition of other vacuum lines. On newer Volkswagens, if the in-tank fuel pressure regulator fails, typically you're not building pressure on the low side, which the vehicle is not going to be able to run. So you don't really run the risk of damaging other components within the vehicle on newer Volkswagens, but yes, you can on older Volkswagen models. As far as maintenance on the fuel system, the biggest thing that you can do for your vehicle is just maintain a decent fuel level, and that's really anything above like an eighth to a quarter tank of fuel. As far as the fuel quality, we're looking for the octane rating. Where the gas cap is, you look at the door itself and it'll tell you the minimum octane rating for your vehicle. The biggest piece of advice I can give to Volkswagen owners, and really just across the board to all vehicles, is make sure you maintain a good fuel level, and that's really anything, you know, quarter tank or more of fuel. So these vehicles, they're constantly changing how fuel systems work. And at fifth gear, we truly believe that training is vital in staying up to date with these systems. So we are regularly taking new courses on what we have coming out, what we've got going on, and sometimes even just taking refresher courses to make sure that we're staying up to date with what we have going on in the shop.